Bhakti Yoga. Mostly according to Swami Vivekananda, who is a beautiful writer on the subject. And I'm referring to his book called Bhakti Yoga, the Yoga of Love and Devotion. In Bhakti Yoga, we are seeking to attain Brahma, universal consciousness, entering into the soul of the universe, a place of immortality, a place that is all-knowing, a place that is all-pervading. And I could say, instead of a place, I could say a being or a feeling of all-knowingness and all-pervadingness. We are seeking liberation through bhakti. Seeking liberation, I go for refuge unto that effulgent one. And here we're talking about the soul of the universe, that which is immortal, that which is forever, that which transcends that which is transient and moves into the place of that which is abiding and eternal. That's what we are seeking. One moment, they say, one single moment of the madness of extreme love in the universe brings us eternal freedom. It's its own fruition, its own means, and its own end. And what we're really talking about here is love. Bhakti is a search for the divine, which is a search for love, which begins and continues and ends in love. Love is the means, love is the way, love is the end. So love is the method and love is the answer. In the end, the idea is that we arrive at universal consciousness, but we are moving, as we do this, far beyond the idea of singleness of attachment into something that's more like a multiplicity or the multiverse of attachment. And it takes us to a very high space. Okay, there's a danger in, not a danger, but a singleness of attachment, and I'll explain this in a second, can only take us so far. For example, we could fall in love with a person, and that could be a singleness of attachment, where that person is everything we're thinking of, everything we're knowing about, everything we're understanding. But if we stop at that point, we get stunted. So what bhakti does is it takes us through and beyond a singleness of attachment into an opening where, let's say the beloved, let's say it's that person we fall in love with, becomes almost like an opening that we can move through into a greater form of knowing. Like, in other words, that lover becomes the beloved that can represent for us the entire universe. Do you see what I mean by that? So we're transcending this singleness of attachment. There are levels of bhakti considered to be preparatory or lower stages, and then we go into the higher stage of bhakti. So a lower preparatory stage actually might be falling in love with an individual human being. But it could be anything. It could be, okay, I'm going to stick to my notes, and then I could go on about all the different things we could fall in love with that could take us to great higher forms of love. But to begin with, to prepare, we can start through meditation. It's one way of preparing. Through the constant remembrance of particular things. Maybe things that we love or things that we are connected with. Connecting with a narrative that is a positive narrative for ourselves. Our memory, by meditating on things and remembering things, that can actually set off liberation for us. by remembering a particular thing and then starting to move through it. Because bhakti itself means constant remembrance. So we could come to a constant remembrance of the divine, for example, and continually remember, or we can come to a constant remembrance of love, remember, and then return to that. So bhakti is a series or a succession, begins with a series or succession of mental efforts at realization. And we move from the remembrance of something, which could be thought of as worship in a way, to a supreme intensity of love. We move from the mundane, honoring something in the mundane perhaps, to turning that into something divine, and then to finally moving into a place of the divine mundane, where everything becomes awake, on fire, in love, where we are in this world of love. Bhakti begins with a focus on the particular. One of the ways that bhaktis work, bhakti is the person who is practicing Bhakti Yoga, a bhakta. The bhakta can meditate on, for example, Ishvara. That would be a focus on the particular. Ishvara is a form of the God, eternal, pure, ever free, almighty, all-knowing, all-merciful, teacher of all teachers, and most of all, inexpressible love. In the end, the personal God is not separate from the universal or absolute Brahman, as we have seen in the Upanishads. The personal is a relative aspect. Ishvara, as a God, is a relative aspect of Brahman. Relative implies that there is a multiplicity of forms. And any relative or particular aspect that we love or that we fall in love with can take us into the all, the great, the one. The gopi, you probably have heard of the gopis or read about the gopis, the gopi girls who fell in love with the god of love, Krishna. And Krishna is always playing the flute for the gopi girls. And there are many stories about the gopis falling in love with Krishna. And Krishna is the god of love. And it is said, so long as they, the gopi girls, had lost the sense of their own personal identity and individuality, they all became Krishnas. So through devoting themselves, they became Krishna. But then, again, when they began to think of him as the one to be worshipped, they became gopis again. So this is moving in and out of that higher consciousness. We become one with it. We are that. We move out of it, become the person again. And the person then is attracted to that larger form or that personalized form. The aim of bhakti is toward spiritual realization. And what is realization? Realization is direct perception. Direct perception. The mythological and symbological parts of all religions are natural processes which help the aspirant to move through the rituals and the forms and the visions, the particular, into the all embracing consciousness. In Hinduism, the guru or the teacher is love incarnate, and the teacher helps to create the field for the seed. The conditions for both the teacher and the taught include purity, a thirst for knowledge, and perseverance on the path. The conditions for the teacher, basically, the teacher needs to know, this is according to Bhakti, the teacher needs to have an understanding of sacred works and texts and so on, a sense of being mentally and physically and spiritually as pure as possible. Love needs to be the motive of the teacher. But nothing from the teacher can convey truth unless the seed of truth is pre-existing within the student. So in a sense, none of it can really be taught. It just has to bloom and come alive within somebody. So there are guideposts, particular guideposts in religion, but it has to be something that comes alive in and with the student. So reading from this book, Bhakti Yoga, nothing can impart to a man a single grain of truth unless he has the undeveloped germs of it in himself. To whom do the stones and brooks preach sermons? To the human soul, the lotus of whose inner holy shrine is already quick with life. And the light which causes the beautiful opening out of this lotus comes always from the good and wise teacher. When the heart has thus been opened, it becomes fit to receive teaching from the stones or the brooks, the stars or the sun or the moon, or from anything which has its existence in our divine universe. But the unopened heart will see in them nothing but mere stones or mere bricks. I love that. We have to be open to perceive the divine energy of the universe. These teachings can't be bought. They can't be acquired from books. It's something that has to, again, it's just blooming within ourselves. Mantras can help to lead us there too. Remembrances, mantras, the knowledge of the microcosm can lead to the knowledge of the macrocosm. And this can happen through the word, the symbol, the logos that begins to bring forth the universe. It's what they call the personal Om to the cosmic Om. The chosen ideal of Bhakti is the power of appreciation. That's what brings us into love, and that's what intensifies our love. So as we appreciate more and more and more, the intensity of our love grows. If we steadfastly devote ourselves to particular ideals, our love is going to continue to grow in that way. And we can become like the pearl oyster who collects one drop of water and makes a pearl out of it. A tiny seed growing from one drop will eventually become the huge tree, for example, of all religions. And when I read this and when I begin to understand this from Swami Vivekananda, I ask myself, okay, so if I'm going to be the pearl oyster, that's one of the metaphors that's used. If I'm going to be the pearl oyster collecting a drop, as they say, usually we think of it as a grain of sand, but say I'm going to collect a drop. What drop am I going to collect and build into a beautiful pearl? What is it I'm going to focus on? Because focus becomes everything. So the method and the means of bhakti: A, pay attention to what is consumed, what we are taking in, what we are consuming, but not necessarily fanatically paying attention, but just pay attention. And even literally like food, because A is pay attention to what is consumed. B is learn to work with controlling our passions, and those would be our lower forms of passion, through focusing on the highest love possible. The next level of it, C, is purification. Purify ourselves. Keep remembering the highest forms. Be truthful, sincere, do good, don't injure others by thought, word, or deed. Don't covet others' goods. Don't think vain thoughts. Don't brood over injuries done by others. And the key to bhakti and to this path is called ahimsa, Ahimsa. And that is the duty, they call it the duty of non-injury. So it's non-violence, right? And you know Gandhi, completely associated with ahimsa, but that's the core of bhakti. And Gandhi was living the path of bhakti. And then the fourth point is build your strength physically and mentally. Build your strength through love, physically and mentally. So the first one's pay attention to what is consumed. Second one, control your passions through focusing on the highest love. Third one is purifying and keep returning to the things that are good. The fourth one is build your strength physically and mentally. These are the preparatory stages of bhakti. Then next we move into what is called supreme devotion. Okay, so it's interesting that they say there's no renunciation in bhakti. It's only about moving to ever higher levels. So the renunciation, you don't have to leave anything out, just love your way through it, like move through it with love. So it becomes easy, it becomes smooth, it becomes flowing. It begins with love of the particular and ends with love of the all. So for example, if you love your town where you live, first you love your town, but then you love your way through into love of your country, and then your love of your country falls away and you move into the love of the whole world, and then you love the whole world, and pretty soon you're loving the whole universe. But you start with a seed of love somewhere, and then keep it growing through your constant focus and meditation to keep enlarging it. Okay, so, and eventually what happens, so go back to the love of the town first. What happens in this process is fanatical patriotism drops away without the manifestation of violence, which I love, and that's what Gandhi was working with. Keep loving your way through. Then eventually the forms, the rituals, the books, the images, the temples, the churches, the religions, the sects, the countries, the nationalities, all fall away, congealing into one thing, supreme devotion to love. Then the sense of divisions becomes eclipsed by the sense of unity. All of this renunciation results from love. So it's renunciation that is no renunciation. You're not renouncing your town. You're just loving your way through it, into a greater love. This love, what is this love? This love is an intense longing for association, and it's for the two to become one. Bringing together, unifying, it's a profound mergence or convergence of energies through intention. So bhakti becomes the science of how to direct love, and even the lowest form of attraction can have and does have and can carry within us a seed of divine love. So with our intention, our love intensifies into a divine expression. And I've even thought sometimes, so if you love chocolate, and that might even seem like something dangerous, for you, but don't deny yourself the chocolate. Love your way through it into something bigger, and pretty soon the chocolate may be turning into kale, because you're just loving your way through and allowing yourself to move smoothly, like through that energy. But it's not a harsh denial. There's never harsh denial in bhakti. The central secret of bhakti is to know and understand the various feelings and passions in the human heart. And those feelings and passions, even the ones that seem negative, they're not wrong in themselves. They just need to be given a higher direction. And that's something on the path that we are capable of doing. We can do this. So what are the forms of love manifestation? And probably the most important form of love manifestation is reverence. Reverence, the realization of the sacredness of everything. And the idea that everything belongs to the beloved or the divine. The divine is the beloved, and everything belongs in that province. Then universal love leads us into a place of self-surrender. Love of the whole universe, unity, love of this unity eventually results in loving all the smaller unities. So it's like there are all these different levels of unities, the one. But when we love the whole, we can also then love the parts better. So we can start by loving the part, the particular, move into the wholeness, but then we're going to be able to come back and love the part better when we can see the bigger picture. Yeah. So love of the small unities eventually results in love of the great unity, and we are all children, we realize, of the universe. And since we are all children of the universe, how can we hurt anyone? How can we not do good? This is the reasoning of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti is offered to everyone, to every life, to every being. Even we can offer the energy of love to misery, even our own misery. And as they say, even to the serpent, which is that which could rise up and bite us. Even death, we can offer our love into death. And so we can smoothly pass through everything, including life and death, misery, destruction, through becoming bhaktas. Love of all is pure bhakti. So you can see what a practice this is in our world, especially when things don't seem lovable and in pieces that seem like we need to get rid of them. But we can love our way through, and when we can finally do that, love of all is pure bhakti. All other forms of love they call preparatory bhakti. So when we come to a place where we can take the whole thing and say, I love it as it is, and we come to a deep understanding, that's the supreme, they call that supreme bhakti. This love becomes like the love, they say, of the moth for the flame. Okay, the bhakta is the practitioner. The bhakta loves because it is the nature of love to love. So the bhakta herself becomes pure love and then is continually moving toward ever greater forms of love. So there's also proposed a thing called the triangle of love, and in this triangle there is, okay, keep in mind this is just Bhakti Yoga here. One of the points of the triangle is there's no bargaining and no begging. So you're not pleading with somebody to give you something if you do something. Okay, there is, so no bargaining or begging. There's no rival, because the object of love is the highest ideal. So there's no rival, and there's no fear. So no bargaining or begging, no rival, and no fear. And in the no fear category, we can also say, interestingly, there's no fear of love. So everything becomes a path of love, putting one foot in front of the other. The light of love then becomes eternally present and requires no proof. So there's no need to even try to prove it or say anything about it, it just is. The language of love becomes inexpressible, really, in human forms. The human forms to express that which is inexpressible become inadequate, and the bhakta just becomes walking love. Okay, so to read another quote from Swami Vivekananda. Okay. Okay. Often it so happens that divine lovers who sing of this divine love accept the language of human love in all its aspects as adequate to describe it, to describe bhakti love. Fools do not understand this, and they never will. They look at it only with the physical eye. They do not understand the mad throes of this spiritual love. How can they? For one kiss of thy lips, O beloved, one who has been kissed by thee has his thirst for thee increasing forever. All his sorrows vanish, and he forgets all things except thee alone. Aspire after that kiss of the beloved, that touch of his lips, which makes the bhakta mad, which makes of man a god. To him who has been blessed with such a kiss, the whole of nature changes, worlds vanish, suns and moons die out, and the universe itself melts away into that one infinite ocean of love. That is the perfection of the madness of love. The conclusion to this story about bhakti is that with Bhakti Yoga, and by the way, you know yoga means, the root is, it's the same as yoke. It means to harness. So you're trying to harness the energy of the universe with yoga. So bhakti is the yoga of love, where we're trying to harness the energy of the universe through love. So that's the meaning of bhakti yoga. So with bhakti, the little self is transfigured in the blaze of the light of love. The love, the lover, and the beloved all become one. And one more quote reading from Swami Vivekananda. No bhakta cares for anything except love, except to love and be loved. His unworldly love is like the tide rushing up the river. This lover goes up the river against the current. The world calls him mad. I know one whom the world used to call mad, and this was his answer. My friends, the whole world is a lunatic asylum. Some are mad after worldly love, some after name, some after fame, some after money, some after salvation and going to heaven. In this big lunatic asylum, I am also mad. I am mad after God. If you are mad after money, I am mad after God. You are mad, so am I. I think my madness is after all the best. The true Bhakta's love is this burning madness before which everything else vanishes for him. The whole universe is to him full of love and love alone. And that's how it seems to the lover. So, when a man has this love in him, he becomes eternally blessed, eternally happy. This blessed madness of divine love alone can cure forever the disease of the world that is in us. Love, lover, and beloved as one. That is Bhakti Yoga.